What is up, true believers? The eternal truth. The eternal truth. The eternal truth. The eternal truth behind our modern mythology.
What is up, true believers? It's Mason here with Comics and Crosses, where we discuss the eternal truths behind our modern mythology. And today is Wednesday, February 2nd. So we have made it through the first month of 2022. And here we are, our second month of this morning show. Actually, this has been a new thing that I started in 2022. And it's been a lot of fun. And today it's going to get even more fun because this is the first morning show that's actually going to have some special guests, some comic creators. So I'm really excited to talk with them, to have them be a part of the show and share about their project. We got Yvonne and Brannon, who are with Mercy Ways and Brainy Pixel, respectively, and we'll be talking about their Indiegogo project for a continuing comic series that they've been working on already for a while, and now is getting its second issue coming out, which is exciting. So more about that in just a minute. And today is Wednesday, so therefore it is New Comic Book Day. So hopefully you guys are picking up some good stuff. Hopefully Diamond is not delayed again this week like it has been many times, and I can get my indie books. We'll see. And also it being a Wednesday is Walking Dead Wednesday. So something I've been doing is I've been reading through for the very first time the iconic classic series The Walking Dead. Now, this comic book series by Robert Kirkman has been a comic book series, then into a TV series, both of which have been huge hits. I think The Walking Dead show is in its final season, I believe, right now. So I've never seen the show. I had never read the comics, and so I thought I would go ahead and try to give it a try. So this is my fourth week. I read issue 4 this week. And our main character, Rick, has been reunited with his family. He's found a band of people who are trying to survive and this zombie apocalypse and wait for help. So he's finding out that they basically set up a camp right outside the city, and they're having to keep watch all through the night. And they're they set themselves up in a dangerous place, kind of like Lot. If you know the Bible story that Abraham and Lot went to go kind of seek out the place that God had for them, and Abraham's maybe less, I don't want to call him less intelligent, but I mean, his cousin made less favorable decisions and found himself kind of taking camp real close to the city and where things were a little more sketch. And anyway, that's what this group does because they're hoping that somebody's going to come rescue them. And I got to say that the more I read this series, the more I see its draw, and just how you kind of see not just zombies, which obviously we don't know zombies to truly exist, although some people are living like zombies. But, although zombies don't really exist, it's the human element to it, the human decision making, the kind of raw pull towards survival. So that's what makes this interesting. That is what makes this series kind of cool. And I'm coming to it totally blind, like I said. So I'm not sure what's going to happen here. There's a little drama in the camp, and some real life or death situations. So kind of cool. So I recommend it. If you haven't read it, you can follow along with me if you like. But that will continue every Wednesday on Walking Dead Wednesday. Sorry, not a lot of super in-depth thought about this issue. As I've said before, Robert Kirkman's stories move very slowly. Okay, so anyhow, that's out of the way. And so today, as I said before, I have a couple special guests. These are true comic creators, and not only that, so they actually deal in, Brainy Pixel deals with a lot of animation. There's also comic books. And so these guys have actually taken upon themselves a big effort of translating into comics the story of King David. Now, literally King David of the Bible, who you may know from slaying Goliath as a young man. But his story is actually super dynamic and really goes on beyond that. And I'll tell you more in a second what I like about their story. But let's bring on our friends. This is Brannon and Yvonne. So here they come. What is up, guys? Welcome to the show.
Hey, Mason.
Hey, good to have you guys. And this is cool because we got to talk when Chronicles of Faith, David issue 1 was coming out. And so now you guys have stuck with it and you're actually taking the story further. So maybe you guys could just take a second to introduce yourselves and the stuff that you're working on.
Yeah, sure. I'll take the baton, then I'll pass it to my brother Yvonne. And just a point of correction, that was actually issue 0. So it's a prequel that we launched. And so we'll be talking about issue 1 today. So that's a great lead in, though. So I'm Brannon Hollingsworth. I'm the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Operations Officer over at Brainy Pixel Productions, a Christian animation and production studio. Over to you, Yvonne. Oh, you're in the other way.
I'm in the other one. I'm right there. Well, my name is Ivan. I'm from El Salvador, Central America. Well, I am the lead comic artist of Mercy Ways. I'm also the art director. And we are a company that create comics, Christian comics, with the desire to create great Christian comics. It's just like one of the things that we love the most is the story of the Bible. And we think that needs to be told in the best way possible. So this is our motto for every day.
That's great. So here's something I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on is because I do the channel Comics and Crosses, right? And so but I very much am not doing specifically Christian content all the time, but so the way I put it sometimes, I'm the #1 Christian channel talking about non-Christian content, or at least I'd like to be. But so when you guys say you're doing Christian comics, how do you view that? Is that because some people might hear that and say, okay, well, then that's made for Christians? Do you mean made for Christians, or do you mean Christian source material for everyone, or how do you translate that?
I think that comics is for everyone. Our goal as Christian creators is to make a great comic.
Yeah.
And you can enjoy this comic if you're Christian, if you're not. One of the things that we talk with Brannon is we don't want to be preachy with our comics, but we're trying to teach and story. So one of the things that we want, if you're not Christian, you can enjoy this story and you can enjoy the art, you can enjoy how this is going to building for something else, even if you're familiar with the story. And if you're Christian, you're going to find one layer that someone else may not find. But that is what faith has to be with this, how God is an important character in this. So it's for everyone, but if you're a Christian, maybe you're going to enjoy it even more.
Yeah, I'd like to footnote that. And so first of all, you can't have a Christian comic. You can't have a Christian movie.
Yeah.
You can't have any of those things because Christ didn't die for movies, right? Christians are people. And so, but there's absolutely, there is a way that you can express Christian ideas, and doctrine and theology through various media, whether it's movies, whether it's animation, whether it's comics or novels or anything. And that's what we try to do. We try to take these concepts from the Bible and we try and express them in a way that becomes palatable to the current culture. And that's exactly what Paul did, right? He did the exact same things like when he was in Athens, right? And he took the unknown God and said, hey, I know who this unknown God is, right? It's Christ. And so that's the same philosophy that we have. And just like Yvonne said, it is incumbent upon us then as stewards of the truth to bring our best offering and make the best possible comic or animation or movie or book that we can, so that people don't immediately look at it and go, oh, it's just, those cruddy Christian fill in the blanks, right? It's just a subpar story. They're just trying to proselytize. And so we start with story first, and then we weave the messages of the Bible into that story. And hopefully we present it in a way that's just going to blow your hair back. So,
yeah, that's great. That's well said for both of you. Yeah, I think then you guys and myself, we have a similar perspective in that we're offering Christian perspective to this medium and this form of entertainment, because a lot of stories, deep historical roots, a lot of themes and things obviously come from biblical stories and biblical themes.
Absolutely.
And so it's actually, and a great perspective to add, I think, to a lot of the content that's out there, and to stories that are being told, and even maybe more so as society kind of gets away from Christian ideas and Christian culturing, and kind of, the further they get away, the more they kind of forget where some of this stuff comes from. So it's nice, it's good to be able to infuse that back in and to be able to teach people things maybe again for the first time.
Absolutely. And comics is a great way to do that. I mean, every basic superhero story is a salvation story, right? You have the hero's journey. You have this moment where, it's dark right before the dawn. You have this emergence, this rebirth moment, this resurrection moment. All those are echoes of the greatest story ever told, right? And that's God's rescue story for us. And so it's all woven in our culture because God created all of us, and our cultures were his idea to begin with. And so he has hidden those messages throughout all of our cultures and all in our hearts. And it's our job to reveal them and say, hey, look, this story that you love so much, here's maybe a reason why, right? Because it's touching something deeper inside you.
Exactly.
In fact, one of the things that we do when we create this comic of David is we just drink from pop culture. One of the things that we know is David was the first underdog hero. It's just no one believed in him. He was no one. It's just you see so many Davids in so many pop cultures, and one of the things that we do is it's just like, okay, what pop culture, like Marty McFly, like Luke Skywalker, like all that characters that have some David on it, we're gonna put in our David. We're gonna put some personality of that David that we want to someone who actually find himself. I like Marty McFly. I love how good Luke Skywalker always has hope. All of that things we want to create in this comic, and we want to be respectful with the Bible, because one of the things we don't want to do is change the Bible. We have no chance to do that, but we want to create an appealing character, someone you're going to relate with, and you're going to believe that, hey, this dude believe all this stuff and believe that, why I cannot be like him. So one of the things we want to do is we drink from pop culture too. It's not like all comics are bad, only Christian comics are good. No, we want to create a story, and we want to create a story when God is the principal character, and people who have faith in that God, in the God of the Bible, is just have done amazing things.
That's great.
And it's fun as part of the process. Yeah. We actually look to culture and we say, hey, wouldn't it be great to have an echo of this character in the comic? And we've actually done that with issue 1. We've got a couple of characters that we actually modeled off of R2D2 and C3PO. And we hope that they're minor characters, right? And they're not mentioned in the Bible, but you often in comics you have to populate the landscape. And so we've got these two characters and they both speak. And we hope people pick up on those little subtle nods to our current stories and our current mythologies, as you like to say, Mason. And we try to bring that back, because again, there's a love of comics that translates, across religion and culture, and doesn't matter where you live, right? It doesn't matter if you've ever been to church or not. Everybody can look at comics and go, this is a pretty neat thing. I mean, look at the success of these Marvel movies, right? That is a testament. So we want to pull some of that back, and put that and kind of bake that into these stories that we're telling, and give those little fan nods and those little Easter eggs. That's important to us as well as lovers of comics.
That's great to hear that you guys have a big perspective, big picture kind of idea or big perspective on this whole thing as you're creating, taking in those influences from modern day, from here and from there, because it's all in pursuit of telling the story the best way you can. I think, actually, as I was thinking back to reading your Zero issue, I was thinking about there's a series, a crowd-funded series called The Chosen. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
Yeah.
But I like that, I think you guys, in similar fashion, there are some things in there that you might say are, well, it's not specifically in the Bible that, he said it this way or that these things, but it's it's the story's told in a way that's really true to the Bible, and the little ways that you flesh it out don't feel like it's any kind of irreverent or anything like that, but it actually adds to the story and makes you relate to it more. Because you think about King David and Solomon, that's a father-son relationship. And we don't see all of the details in the Bible of exactly how they interacted, but we do know that this wisdom was passed down and these lessons. And so it's cool. I really love the way that you chose to tell the story that way, of a father-son kind of dynamic of teaching lessons and of sharing this great adventure that his life was, and hoping to pass that knowledge down to his son. I thought that was really cool the way you did that.
Thank you. And we kind of doubled down on that, in issue 1. So issue 0 is out, just for the folks that are out there. You can go to brainypixel.com or mercyways.com or even Comixology, and you can go get Chronicles of Faith, David, issue 0 right now. But issue 1 is also done. So, we did and created and released issue 0, and we've been working on issue 1 and gotten it ready. And we've doubled down on that very concept, Mason, in issue 1, in that we're widening the camera focus a little bit. We're kind of pulling back from David, because David's story is not just David's story, right? It touches King Saul, right? And King Saul's story touches Samuel, the prophet, and it touches David's family, Jesse and all his brothers and sisters. And there's not a lot, in the Bible about some of those characters. Some obviously, yes, but some not as much. But they all have influence and effect on David as our main character. And there's a great moment that I absolutely love in issue 1, where we meet David's sister, and she just drops this little note about David's character, right? And it's an insight that an older sister would have for a younger brother. But that little note is going to echo, on down the line when David has a major failing in his character. And so we wanted to put that in there, because that's something that might have happened. And that's exactly what you're talking about, Mason.
Yeah.
There might have been a relationship where that older sister saw a flaw early on in David and tried to help him steer away from that, or remind him of that, as a loving sister would. And that's just the art of storytelling. You've got to figure out, what are ways that I can bring these elements into play for the reader that don't seem on the nose, that don't seem like, oh, we're just kind of, monologuing here. And that's a really, really fun thing to do as a creator. So
another side view of that is the story of that is just the story of Israel too, and Israel versus the Philistines. So we touch a lot of that in there. We touch and then it's become also the fight between the God of Israel against the God of the Philistines. So we build all the layers to actually, this is the context of what David is happening. It's not just David, it's just, there's a lot of things in issue 1. It's a huge issue, 32 pages, full color. And it's one of the things that I love is just we actually put some seed in the ground in this. There is going to build up for what is coming. And if you know the story of David, and I know many of us know, because who doesn't know the story of David, you're going to get surprised. You're going to find out that David has sisters, and he's in the Bible, and nobody actually read that, but it's in the book of Chronicles. When you make the recount of David has 2 sisters, and he was the last of the 9, 7 brothers and 2 sisters. and you're gonna find out that there was like the side of the Philistine, that how that happened. We gotta put a lot of Easter eggs of the description of the giants. I'm asking you to read and search what is that means and how many fingers people had, all that kind of stuff. We go deep in the Bible, and one of the things we want to do is we go deep in the Bible that make the story even more interesting, and we go deep in story too, and how the Philistines eat a lot of dog, and nobody knows that. But one of the things that they do, they eat dog a lot, dog and pork. So we go deep in that. So why they eating that? And if you see, that is the things that the people of Israel should not eat.
Right.
So is a spiritual contrast in there too. So a lot of things. We bring a lot of. We bring a lot of seed.
Not kosher at all.
Not kosher at all.
Kosher.
Yeah.
And part of that.
Go ahead, Brandon.
I was just saying, part of that as well is just as soon as I get on board a project, I want to go explore the bad guys. I love the bad guys. My favorite Star Wars movie is Empire Strikes Back. It just, that's my favorite. I love the dark. I like exploring those dark little nooks and crannies because I love it when the light shines in there and we get to see the evil for what it is. And so when Yvonne said, "Hey, we'd love for you to write on issue 1," because issue 0 was already written when we got involved, and he's like, "And we'd like for you to write the Philistines," and I was like, Yes. That's going to be so much fun. So yeah, we really dove deep into the Philistines and the culture, and you get to see a lot of that stuff peeking out, from around the edges of the frame. And there are so many little subtle things in issue 1 that we're proud of, and we praise God for. And we can't wait for people to get a copy and tell us what they think. So
that's really cool. It's so this project, Chronicles of Faith, David, is not only a comic book project. I mean, not only, and along with it being a biblical story, it sounds like really a lot of research that you guys put into this, a lot of details and uncovering things that, you don't typically hear people talking about or laying out as part of David's story. So that's really cool to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And kudos to the Mercy Ways team. That's the way they operate. And when that was really one of the main reasons why Brainy Pixel wanted to be involved with it, is when we kind of began to step into this world of Mercy Ways, and we saw how much love there is for Scripture and the things of God in the studio in El Salvador. It's kind of convicting, honestly, for me personally. I'm like, I need to read more Bible. But the process of going through writing these comics is more Bible study than it is comics, right? And so, every day we've got a reading list, it's like a Bible reading program. You have to go through and read all this stuff. We jump into Josephus. We look at the Talmud. We read, historical and cultural texts surrounding, like, research papers, right? We're reading all this stuff and we're bringing that to the table when we're crafting these comics. And we kind of joked around about, hey, all this stuff that we've kind of pulled together would be great for a Bible study. Maybe we should kind of have a side Bible study as well, a companion piece. But there is so much research and care and love and prayer. I can't stress that enough. This project has been bathed in prayer. We pray for hours over these comic panels, over the pencils, over the paper, over the artists, everything. And so I think God will bless that obedience. So
wow, that's really cool.
And also we're trying to keep it simple. I don't know how that works, but we try to understand what is the actually message of the story of David. And issue 1 is actually that. I'm not going to say it because I want people to find out, but we trying to teach, not preach, but we want to teach what is important in the heart of David. For that reason, the issue 1 is the heart of a king. And you meet 2 kings in there. Well, actually 3. You meet 3 kings in here, but one has the heart of the king. And what is that special about it? It's not even the faith. It's just something that actually it's the difference between David and Saul. We're trying to answer that question, why God preferred David over Saul.
Mm-hmm. It's I think that research and that attention to detail is really profound. And like there are historical movies and shows and animations and things where you see these fine details that sometimes aren't even really pointed out, but are just there, and it really adds a richness to it. And I think that maybe for people that are unfamiliar with the Bible or even just this biblical story, there is a lot of richness there to think about the dynamic of the ongoing conflict between Israel and the Philistines. The history there, the kind of the history of the two nations, the history of David, also the history of kings, the very short history up to that point of kings in Israel, and what Israel has gone through in terms of having a king, and what it will go through in the future. And so, yeah, all of those things add a very add drama, add intrigue, add interest to this story that is very much based in reality. Even if you were to totally not believe the Bible,
Sure.
just the rich history there, I think is plenty to want to explore. And there's another series like this from Mad Cave, not like this but different, called Knights of the Golden Sun, where they really kind of dig into and add on to biblical context, but theirs is more of on the spirituals in the heavenly realms with archangels and all these kinds of things and protecting the line of David leading to Christ. And so but it's cool. It's cool when you see those things that you're like, oh, wow, okay, they really thought about these details that are historically recorded and made an interesting story out of that.
And I think there's a really important point here that a lot of producers of Christian media miss, right? And that is one of the underpinnings of good storytelling is not asking what happened, but it's asking why did it happen, right?
Yeah.
And so I do a lot of story consulting for companies and for individuals who are trying to craft story. And that's never the question, right? They always want to know what happens. And I say, look, we got to step back and we got to ask why. What are the motivations that are driving these actions? Because that's where true character conflict and true character, understanding a character comes from. And I think that's what happens a lot of times in Christian media is we just tell what's in the Bible, right? We just take the words from the Bible and somehow figure out a way to depict that, but we don't ask why, right?
Yeah.
What are the underlying motivations that are pushing the story forward? That's where we engage with story as people, is trying to figure out, why did he do that? Why did she go in that room? Why doesn't she turn the light on? Whatever it is. And that is one of the things we ask ourselves a lot at Brainy Pixel and Mercy Ways is why.
That's good, because I think a lot of the, especially when you in the historical parts of the Bible, sometimes there are very significant details that are maybe a line or two, and that really takes some thought to think about. Okay, what was just said here, and then how did it really get from there to here? And I know I studied creative writing and script writing when I was in college. And there was something we did called a step outline, where you would make each scene was basically one step of your story. And it forced you to really stop and ask what, not only what is happening, but to discover what's happening, who's involved, and what do these characters want? What is their motive? And, I think if you did that with it, and it sounds like you guys have, this is what you're talking about, is looking at your story and the steps and saying, how did we get from here? Why did we get from here to here? There has to be motivation. Otherwise, stories don't move along. But sometimes we just try to tell it and put it out there. So I'm really glad to hear you guys are digging into that.
Yeah, and when you tell a story like that, it just falls flat, and the reader or the viewer can kind of perceive that, right? They can kind of understand, and that's why I think a lot of this Christian media does. It just kind of falls flat because they're just trying to say the same thing in a different way, and that's not always enough to engage, someone from a story perspective. You got to go a little bit deeper and get into those characters. So, absolutely.
One of the things that we're trying to do is answering question. It's just one of the things that when we create Chronicles of Faith is just trying to answer the question: is worth to trust in God? Mm-hmm. Can I trust God, and that is something that I should do? And we think that is an honest question, and everybody has that question. Even Christian, can I trust God in this? We know that is a yes because of our belief, but sometimes it's just, should I do that? And one of the things that we're trying to do is trying to answer that question. And how you answer that question? Well, we're trying to tell the story of someone who actually did it, and that is David.
Yeah. Can I trust God? And if so, why? Right. Again,
Yeah.
you ask that why. Why did David trust God? Right. Why did Saul stop trusting God? Right. And so there are all these amazing critical questions for us in our walk, in our Christian walk, or in our unbelieving walk towards potential salvation. Right. That you've got to answer those questions. Everybody grapples with that very critical question is, can I trust God? Everybody does. And some people reject him and walk away, and some people don't. And even those that, accept him, they still struggle with that after the fact. So you got to ask why, and so that's one of the things we love doing. And we pray that this comic will illustrate, at least in David's story, why he was able to trust in God and inspire others to do the same. And Lord willing, we'll be able to tell other stories in Chronicles of Faith, not just David's, but other great people who had faith. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I had a really interesting conversation with some friends of mine. They do something called the Simply Amazing podcast, and they talk. It's all focused on the character of Nightcrawler, who's an X-Man, and so, but a mutant and X-Man, and so it just so happened that they had me on for the episode to talk about his faith because he's a devout Catholic and has rich faith in God. And so something that we talked about was I think that somebody wrestling with their own faith and that whole idea of trusting God, do I have faith, especially through the challenges in their life, is so much more rich for story. And it's great when you can see that. I think it's a great opportunity to be featured in comics, in movies, in shows, but oftentimes Christians are only portrayed in terms of hypocrisy. That's kind of the only feature they get in a lot of shows or media or even comics. So it's great to see that kind of being put on display because there's a lot of richness there. And would you Yvonne, would you say that what is the main theme of David's story? Well, can you boil it down? Can you say here is the theme of his life?
Actually, there's something really important. I'm going to say this: the story of David and why it's so important start with the story of Anna, the mother of Samuel. If you remember, there was Anna, a woman who has not able to have kids, and there was the other girl. We're not talking about having two wives. This is a long story. But there's the other guy who actually can have kids, and he was prideful, and she was, you know what? I can have kids and you don't. And Anna come and he humbled herself in front of the Lord. And even the priest thinks she was drunk. And the theme of David started there. It's just how God is just raise the humble, and he defeat the proud. That's a word. And if you see that is the contrast with everything. So David is the humble man, and he can make mistake. When he forget his humbleness, he made mistake. And Saul was the prideful king. He actually forget a lot of the things he should not do. And if you see the contrast because Saul actually did something that only the priest can do. And even when David was also anointing, he just respect the one of the things that said in the Deuteronomy, that you cannot harm the anointing of God. And David was how that deep inside of him, he had the chance to kill Saul, he never did. So if you see that, there's a long theme, and how God actually is with the humble, and he actually reject the prideful, and that is the story of David. And that is the things that we want to do. And the last page of issue 1 is that God actually go for the humble.
I don't know that I've ever actually asked myself, what would the theme of David's life or his story as captured in the Bible be? But that's excellent. Humility and pride, and it really it waxes and wanes in David's life. I think that at his heart, he is a humble person. He was a man after God's own heart, but he certainly has his times where pride gets the better of him, or there are mistakes, there are falls, and
If you see the difference between the mistake that David does, when he actually got confronted by Nathan, he was humble. He say, "Oh, you're right." And what happened with Saul? Hey, you know what? Don't tell. I know that I made a mistake, but that's okay. Come. Let's not make the people angry. And you see the two difference there.
Yeah,
and that's the story. That's the root of all of our struggle, right? Is humility versus pride. I honestly believe that pride is the original sin, and all sin stems from pride. Personally, that's not biblical necessarily. I think I could make a really good case, but we all struggle with this humility and pride, balance, and every time that we humble ourselves and we become obedient to God in the Bible, every time anyone humbles themselves and becomes obedient to God's in the Bible, He blesses them. So you can go do a Bible study on that and look at the pattern, and you can draw from that what you will, but it happens every time. But when we're prideful and we do what we want to do, then bad things happen. So
yeah, absolutely. I when I'm talking to people who are not coming from a Christian perspective or background, I like to try to sum things up as best I can. And I always say that, to understand the concept of sin and the whole idea of God labeling things as sin, as bad, is not about, it may not be about what you think it is. To boil it down to its simplest element is to say that sin is selfishness, is what I always say. And, essentially pride in there. It's to, and we look back to the whole idea of Adam and Eve in the garden. And what is it that, no, you can do better for yourself. Yes, you were promised a lot of good things, but what if you take the wheel? What if, what if you make another choice that is in your best interests? And that's what all of life, it all boils down to at the end of the day. And, it's like, I always talk about, how eternity, the reason I do all this is because eternity is written into the hearts of people, by God. And so whether you believe you want to believe in sin or not, I think inherently we all know that selfishness is the problem. In our spirit, whether we are born again, alive, a Christian professing faith or not, people know that is what's wrong. What if God is good? Why is there wars? Why is there this? Why is there that? Well, it comes down to selfishness, and not loving your brother who you can see, hating the person you see and not being able to love them or God at the same time.
That's why Christ, when he was asked what are the most important commandments, he summarized the Torah. He summarized the 10 commandments into 2 commandments. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. It doesn't get much more concise than that. And so it's exactly what you're talking about, Mason, is that selfishness, right? When we love ourselves more than others.
And that you stop to be the principal character. Is God and others the principal character in your life? So there's no selfishness in that.
Yes. Well, so the book is Chronicles of Faith, David. And so if I was hearing you guys right, go into the Indiegogo link that's in the description of this video. You can actually, so this is going to be a project to support and to get issues 0, 1, and 2? Or
no,
is
So no, what we're trying to do is we're trying to raise money for the production of issue 2. Issue 0 and issue 1 are done, and you can actually get those when you become a backer
nice.
of our Indiegogo. And so this right now is exclusive. The only way you can get issue 1, like I said, issue 0 is out there. You can go get it. You can see how amazing the story is. You can see the stunning art. that Yvonne and the team at Mercy Ways has produced. You can go grab that really easily. But if you back us, then you're going to get this exclusive content of issue 1. So you get to see how the story continues. And we're trying to raise money for that issue 2 so we can continue the story moving forward. Comics at this level aren't cheap. We're trying to raise $7,500. There's a lot of work that goes into these things, many man months of time and research and art and layout and lettering and coloring and flattening and all these amazing things. And so we're trying to raise $7,500, and I think we can do that. I think we can raise more than that. So, but if you go right now to the Indiegogo link and back us, then issue 0 and issue 1 are headed your way, along with a lot of other really cool perks as well. Some of them are even where you can have, possibly story meetings with, Mercy Ways and Brainy Pixel, or exclusive hangouts with the crew, or, things of that nature. So, and if you do the top backer level, which isn't a lot, is only like $105, you can actually be a character, a background character in issue 2. So
wow, you can find yourself basically in the Bible if you at that
and
level.
the story of David.
You can say you were there when David did X.
There you go.
That's pretty cool. Not you're gonna trump your pastor for sure. I mean, if you can down, I mean, that's a real one-upper right there.
You can actually say to your pastor, "I was there, pastor.
I was there.
I was there.
I got no proof." Well, that's cool. So one last thing is, I think last time I talked to you guys, Yvonne, I grew up always being told, I was adopted as a baby at about 1.5, and I was told that I was Salvadorian.
Oh,
and
I remember now.
Yes. And so last time I talked to you guys, this was my understanding. Now, interesting story. Since then, my wife bought me Ancestry.com, and I had a DNA test. And then I actually connected with my paternal family, my biological family.
Praise God. That's awesome.
It was pretty incredible. And I keep thinking of it because I look at you, Yvonne, and I think, gosh, this guy looks like he'd be related to me. But
now that you mention it.
Yeah. A couple of good-looking guys here. Yeah. So and then they told me, I said, "Hey, I'm told I'm Salvadorian. Is there any Salvadorian in our family?" I said, "No, we're all Mexican." Oh. And I looked at the DNA, and there was no Salvadorian in there. So so I don't know. So now it's back to being a mystery. But I like pupusas, and that is as far.
Well, if you like pupusas, you're a Salvadorian.
All right, okay.
It's all done.
They'll claim you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
You belong to our family.
Okay, awesome. Good. And if it's coming from you, it's legit. So I appreciate it. So here on this show, I got legitimized as a Salvadorian. Yep. And for $105, I can get legitimized as having been there in Bible times. So
you can be an Israelite too.
Oh, wow.
Or a Philistine, whatever you choose.
I'm gonna go with Israelite. Yeah. But well, guys, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. It's really cool to hear about just your process and your thinking, and how much thought you guys have really put into this story, and bringing out the details and the history. And I hope that everybody goes watching this on replay or whatever, share this link and tell people they can go now to Indiegogo. The link is in the description. So go find that right there, and make sure that you go check them out, back them. There's a lot of reasonable prices you can get in to support, and get yourself a copy of the comic, even issues 0 and 1 as well. So if you haven't read anything, this is a great way to catch up and support the future. So, absolutely. All right, guys, I want to thank you so much. And I really wish you the best as you continue to unfold this really cool story, and hopefully a lot more stories in the future too, at this same high level that you're doing.
One of the things that we want to do is give it a try. Look the story, look the comic, look at the art, and if you like what you see, help us. We want to keep creating this until we get to apocalypse in real life or in the book, whatever happens first.
Sure. First, right?
Yeah. To bring it right back to the zombie apocalypse. That's perfect, Yvonne.
Yeah,
Let's go. Let's go.
Nice.
Walking Dead.
there.
Thanks so much for having us on, Mason. We really appreciate it. We love what you're doing. We support you. And so everybody out there, keep watching Mason and Comics and Crosses, and definitely keep spreading the word. This man is doing God's work, and he's doing it in a way that's really exciting. So thank you, Mason.
Oh, thanks so much, guys. You guys are awesome. All right, guys, have a good rest of the day, and enjoy your new comic book day, everybody. And we will catch you next time. Be back on Friday morning at 8 a.m. Central. So God bless and peace.